Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. I actually pressed that button a little too soon, even though I'm running a little late. Well, my friends, another revelation, another big shocking moment. If you follow my channel, today I was on live earlier this morning sharing about another cold case that another arrest was made. And through this, it's like, okay, that was great news. But this story about Suzanne Morphew, which we have been covering this story for a pretty long time. And to the point where I even went through the whole arresting documents of her husband, Barry Morphew. The affidavit I went through basically the whole affidavit, lives, part 1, part 2, part 3. And we were breaking down everything that he was being charged with. But here was what I was thinking, was like, man, they don't have enough. I didn't feel like they had enough. Fast forward, now they have a body because Suzanne Morphew was found. Though this is a heart-wrenching story, by all means, this is a heart-wrenching story. And when you stop and you think about it, it's like, why would anyone do such a thing? And if it was Barry that did this, again, I say if this was Barry, he's going to get his day in court. So I'm not trying to jump the gun. He came out today and he said, I'm happy, basically I'm paraphrasing, I'm happy that she was found. I have nothing to do with this. So he was basically saying, again, I know everyone's going to point at me. He's right. They are going to point at him. But here's the thing. If he didn't have anything to do with this, he doesn't really have to worry, does he? He doesn't really have to worry. But if he does have something to do with this, then he might have a little something to worry about. And so we're going to be diving into where she was found, where her remains were found. What we know, this is a developing story. This is just started coming out today. If you follow this story, you probably are not finding out about it at this very moment for the first time. Probably. But I know that I was at practice and I got notifications about Suzanne Morphew being found. This case is dear to my heart for a number of reasons. Number one, she went missing on Mother's Day. Her daughters had no clue what happened to her. And now we have, in this gut-wrenching turn of events, the search for Suzanne Morphew, a wife, a mother, and a community member. This has culminated into a heart-rending discovery. And we have been wondering for a while what happened to Suzanne Morphew. And to be honest with you, I was starting to lose faith that they were going to find something. But they did share that when the snow was going to melt away and they can actually search, they knew where they were going to search. So my thought process is that there must have been some actual relevancy behind those statements, because here we are. They have found her. Rest in peace, Suzanne Morphew. And so, while the closure of finding Suzanne is welcomed by all, because I am happy that they can at least start a little process of the closure. It's really hard, I would imagine, for them to actually have closure without her remains, without her body. It's hard to know how to phrase that in a sensitive manner. And so having this find is a big deal. And so to me, because I've been following this story basically since it was shared, and it was like, here we are. We've been hoping that she would be found, that there would be a safe return, even though we started losing doubt early on. The profound sadness lies in the fact that she was found lifeless. And that's where we have to really keep in mind what this is about. Suzanne was missing. We didn't have any clue. We only had ideas. And breaking down that affidavit, it made sense why they would think Barry had something to do with it. But now that this discovery was made, that changes everything. And so you have all these years of exhaustive efforts by the law enforcement agencies, volunteers sharing diligent searches. And, we knew that this location would hold some answers to Suzanne Morphew's disappearance. And now it has finally been revealed because she was found in a shallow grave in Moffatt, Colorado, 50 miles south of where she lived. Also about 50 miles south of where her bike was found. And so we're going to dive into this a little bit, into the map and where she was found. And unfortunately, it is with deep sorrow that her discovery did not bring any justice for hoping that she would be found alive, or any joyous reunion with her friends and her families and the entire community that yearned for her, because this became a national story. And so people were following this Suzanne Morphew story for a long time. And so news of Suzanne Morphew's fate now being discovered, it really puts a sorrow meaning to behind all of this. And so we're going to dive into a little of what we know about this. But let's dive into the map and see, let's take a look at where she was found. Okay, and let's take a look at, let's make sure I have that right one. Yeah, there we go. And I've got Google Earth up here. And so this is Salida. You can see Salida right here. Let me see if I press the right buttons. I never pressed the right buttons. Yep, I did. Okay, you can see this is Salida. No, this right here. Okay, you can see Salida, the yellow piece up above. This is the north part of it. Salida up there, and then Moffatt at the bottom. I should have checked if I was pronouncing that right. Moffatt. The town of Moffatt. It's a statutory town in Sequatchie County, Colorado. Sequatchie, what I've noticed, is more a little to the west. Man, I should have checked these pronunciations on these words. Colorado is definitely a place that I could see myself living, but that's not what this is about, sorry. And in this place, this is a population, it was 108 at the 2020 census. And so she was found in a shallow grave in Moffatt, which is south. If you look down on this screen, you can see. And up above is Salidas. Salidas is also a place that is where she lived, where they had their home, which he has since sold that home. Now, this is the statutory city that is the county seat and the most populous municipality of Chaffee County. Now, Chaffee County, we've been talking about that all along in this story, all along. And so we see that there is a straight, basic south travel distance. And we'll Google map that as well. And I don't know what happened there, but let's go back to this here. This is a more closer look. This is Salida. Now, this is where she lives. This is Chaffee County. You can see Chaffee County Court. You can see the different areas. And her bike was found more along the lines of a couple miles west of her home. Now, her bike was found. It did look more to me like it was staged. I don't know what you think. If you follow that, I played it. I played the whole cam part of when they came across it, when they saw it there. But there's a lot of power plays to this when it comes to this community. And what I mean by that is they did not have answers. No one had answers. So the power play was more on whoever did this side. I'm trying to refrain from who I think is the obvious person in this, because everyone deserves their day in court. He has not been arrested, but Barry has been arrested and almost went to trial for this. His trial was to start in May, and they dropped it with prejudice, meaning that, I believe that's the right word, meaning that they can try him at a later time. And so with that, then we find that she is found here in this area. Now, I don't know much about this area. You can see that it's actually close to or in a wildlife area, Russell Lake State Wildlife Area. So you know there's going to be wildlife. And when you stop and think about wildlife, you know, what was one of the first things that he asked when he got out of the truck? It was on video, you know. And so he started throwing all these different scenarios out there. And one of them was, you know, did a lion, or I forget exactly what it was, get her or something? And then come to find that she's found close to the wildlife. And then here goes that, I might be pronouncing it wrong, Sequatchie or something like that. And if you look at this area, it's a lot of mountainous areas. It's a lot of park. It's a lot of, you can see right here, Tracy Mountain. And you can see the different areas here, right there. McIntyre Ridge, Copper, you can see Peak. These are different mountainous aspects. As we know, it's Colorado, right? We know that there's a lot of mountains out there. But what we want to figure out, number one, is justice for Suzanne Morphew. Taken from this world way too soon. She deserves answers. I don't care what she was doing in her private life. Obviously, I think Barry caught on to her. I think Barry caught on to her affair. I do not condone doing anything, but I think it has nothing to do with why a person should be murdered. And so if that is what happened, again, right now I could just speculate. He was arrested for it. He was charged for it. Now let's be real. Now that they have Suzanne, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. Sorry. It's just a matter of time before an arrest is going to be made. There is going to be some proof. Because when you follow what was going on with this affidavit and all the GPS movements right when he got there, to the point where she had just sent a picture to Jeff Libler not too long before that. All of a sudden, no one can get a hold of her. And there's a lot of movement, a lot of GPS movement. And so when you think about those type of aspects of it, you stop and you think, okay, now let's work on getting some justice. Because now that investigators have revealed that they found her scattered remains. Scattered remains. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. And they found her 50 miles from her bike in Moffatt, Sequatchie County. Man, I'm probably butchering that. I should have looked at that. And while they were probing a completely separate case, they weren't even checking this. So then that makes me wonder, like, if maybe did they actually have anything to do with wait till the snow clears? Because she ended up being found in the mountains, which is where they believed that she was going to be found. And so here they are checking into a separate case. They find that, hey, here we come across, so where did this come from, right? She had been buried in a shallow grave. That's what the coroner called to the site said about that. It was a shallow grave. And her bones then dispersed over the years. And so over the time that this has occurred, it just started doing its own thing. And so no arrests have been made except the fact that Barry was arrested and then he was boom. But no arrests have been made since the remains. But again, her identity was confirmed on September 27th. It just started coming out today. But they found her on September 22nd. And so there was that 5-day gap of now we have confirmation that this is Suzanne Morphew. And so now you already know the Colorado Bureau of Investigation is all over this thing. And in May of 2021, a year after Suzanne disappeared, that's when her husband, Barry Morphew, was arrested and charged with her murder. Despite police having not have her body. They did not find her at that time. So last year, prosecutors, they dropped all the charges against Morphew after a judge sanctioned the district attorney's office for a bunch of these discovery violations. They found that you were in violation of this. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And so that's when the case was dismissed without prejudice. And even though the defense, they were objecting. They're like, no, we want to move forward. They were objecting to all of this, which meant that this thing could still be refiled should new evidence come to light. My friends, this is new evidence. This is going to be the nail in, it has to be Barry, right? Because he was the only one that's ever been on their radar. Again, he's going to get his day in court. Right now, I'm just throwing this out there because he was already arrested for this. And so a source that was close to Barry Morphew was sharing that they thought he would be completely exonerated. So, and Barry, I think he thinks right now he's okay. I don't know. I could be completely off in that aspect, but I think at the bottom line, there is a lot of relief Suzanne was found. But what about the daughters? I'm curious how that's going to play out and if he does get arrested, because they have been so supportive of Barry since day one, right? Since day one, they have been extremely supportive of Barry. So now you have to ask, okay, so if you are still supportive of Barry, all right, okay, that's totally fine. But now after he gets arrested, then what are you gonna say? If he gets arrested, what are you gonna be? Because they have not really shown much concern about anything other than Barry. But that doesn't mean that they think that Barry did anything, and that's totally okay if they do not think that, right? It's Dad. Why would they automatically think Barry is guilty of anything at this moment? And so, we had where Barry himself was out there doing interviews and sharing different things, like where he did an actual interview in reference to, hey, I want you back. Please come back. And so it was like no one really knew. Like, okay, we're going to believe you at this moment. But it wasn't really for sure whether, like, it wasn't really a sure thing. And we want to know, like, okay, did this happen? And so here he was like asking anything, please, whoever has her, we'll pay anything. We'll give you anything. But after a while, he didn't really seem too crazy concerned about much, right? I guess it probably came down to him having to defend himself because there was some weirdness that occurred. Without a shadow of a doubt, there was definitely some weirdness that occurred. A lot of bleach and chlorine in his hotel room, that literally became a thing. And so it was so unsure, like, what was going on. But everyone knew she was not alive. They knew she was not alive because there was no activities. There are ways that you can track people to see if they're still alive, any signs of life. There are different ways to an extent. I'm sure someone can go off the grid and disappear. But now it's complete confirmation she is not alive. Now, Barry Morphew, he was working in Broomfield at the time, which is a suburb of Denver, roughly 150 miles from the family home. And this was at the time of his wife's disappearance, and the body was found even further away. So that kind of gives him more maybe of an alibi, like how could I have also been 50 miles further down there? Right? So right there, that almost kind of might help him. And so now that Suzanne has been found, people are going to be expecting answers. Barry Morphew himself, he is suing for $15 million after he was arrested on suspicion of his wife's murder, only for charges to then be dropped. And so the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, John Spazey, he said, basically, today is Wednesday still. It's like 11:50 here p.m., right? This is like a breaking story, and this is my first available time. But he said, while this case has garnered attention from around the world, it has touched our community and the sheriff's office deeply. A lot of people have been tuned into this, and I truly believe people want justice. And, the sheriff says we have never stopped our investigation and will continue to follow all leads in pursuit of justice for Suzanne. Yes, that's what we want to hear. Suzanne deserves justice. I have been following this story so much because so many oddities around this, and it was way too suspicious that she could just up and vanish. Because literally, that's what was thought to, like, there's no way, right? And so, although locating, her remains, this is just a part of the investigation. And, this is just part of what the family has been going through, that they can at least get this little part here. But there's so many more questions that are left because now someone needs to pay for this crime. Someone needs to pay for this crime. And the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, of course, they're not going to provide any details about the discovery. But the coroner, who is Tom Perrin, he said that she was found in a remote, dry desert field of sagebrush and natural grasses south of Moffatt. So if we're looking at Moffatt, let's get back over here. Man, I'm probably butchering that. I should just even do it. Let's see. Let's find you right here real quick. Okay, so a little south of it, and that would put her right here. You can see the south portion of it. So this is right there. So a little south of that area, somewhere around this particular part. So this is the surrounding area, and we're looking at Google Earth here. Okay, so then we have like where. We don't really know where she was found, but we know somewhere around this area she was found. And so she was found in somewhere along these area where there would be some grass. Let's see where there could possibly be some grass south of Moffatt. So how much grass could it be? If you're going south, see, it's hard because it's also in different areas. So it's like, where could it possibly be there? But Tom Perrin, he was called to collect her remains on September 22nd. And he said that it appeared that the body had been buried in the shallow grave before the remains had scattered. And Melinda Balzer, Morphew's older sister, said that they were told on Wednesday morning that Suzanne's remains had been found. Barry Morphew, her next of kin, he was informed first because that's the husband, right? Of course, that's just going to be the routine. And, Mormon, the older sister, says this is a miracle. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. That's how I felt. I always wondered, like, man, is this going to be something that goes cold forever and we never have any type of answers? She doesn't deserve that. So to have this come out is such a... I hate to use positive words around this, but this was a mystery, right? And so I think it is a positive moment that she is not lost without her family being able to do the proper thing. And even her older sister, she was even sharing, it's day of great sadness but a day of celebration. So that's where it's like, it's hard to be like, yay, but like, yay, like, oh, what a blessing in this aspect of it. And, her sister said that the family still has a lot of unanswered questions. And you best believe the police are looking into every aspect. It will not be long before someone is arrested. Mark my words. And I truly believe this is just another small aspect of this puzzle that they have been putting together, because Suzanne Morphew, she was reported missing on May 10th, 2020, Mother's Day, with her bike gone from the garage. And then her bike was found later that day discarded down a ravine when everyone was searching for her. Then 5 days later, on May 15th, her bike helmet was discovered on the side of a road less than half a mile where the bike was found, which was also a short distance from the family's home. No clothing, blood, or any type of evidence of any type of struggle was found to make it look like she was actually, kidnapped or something nefarious had happened while she was on her bike. But her sunglasses and hydration backpack, they were found inside her car, leading investigators to believe, that perhaps Suzanne never really went for a bike ride after all on that morning that she actually vanished. And instead, they said that they think that maybe this is a staged scene. And so her body was found on September 22nd, 2023, 50 miles from her bike. Now, after Barry was charged and the case against him, progressed, authorities, they revealed some intimate details about their married life. That's when all those text messages started coming out. That's when all those, the truth about her affairs started coming out. One affair is all we know of, with someone that she had met in high school, Jeff Libler, that I mentioned earlier, while Barry was signed up on, he himself was on some websites, where it's like websites that they do have affairs. And so he wasn't perfect in that department as well. And so we know about all that. It should never lead to death. And when the case was still active, that's when we find out that Suzanne, Barry, and Libler appeared in the local paper together in 1985. And so that's where it's like, both men went to the same high school as Suzanne? Barry 2 grades ahead of his wife and Libler at Alexandria Monroe High School in Alexandria, Indiana. And I believe Barry went back to Indiana after this whole thing had occurred. And so what we want to find out now is who's about to be arrested for this. Again, is it going to be some type of shocking turn of events that we never saw coming? Or is it the one thing we're all seeing coming? Because there's only one person that's ever been named by the detectives, by the online sleuths, by podcasters. There's only one name that's ever been mentioned that was or should I say, you can speculate in a lot of different ways. You should speculate in a lot of different ways until you know for sure. But we all had one person on our mind. I'm going to be honest with you. It's the one person I thought, and it's the one person that I do believe is probably going to be arrested. But again, he deserves his day in court. If I saw him right now, I would not punch him in his face because he deserves his day in court. Let him be judged by his peers in court with all the evidence, and then if it is proven that he is the perp, he deserves to get time. He deserves the maximum penalty, because I truly believe taking someone's life deserves the maximum penalty at all costs. I'm not a true believer that you should probably ever see the day of light if you take someone away from this world. You should have your rights taken away from this world as well. That's just my thought process on that. So whoever it, that's just, I don't even know. I need to stop that. But when her husband came home from work that day, he found Suzanne sunbathing in the yard. And she was sending pictures to herself to Libler over LinkedIn, which, this is how they were communicating. This was how they were doing they almost had like a right schedule on when they could text each other, how they can text each other. It was hot and heavy. It was hot and heavy. It sounded like two teenagers in love. I'll be honest with you. But at the end of the day, maybe that was real. I don't know. I definitely don't think it was right. But she did not deserve to lose her life over this. And in court, they were shown a photo of Suzanne that was sent the day that, to Libler that day. And I showed that all on my channel, and I should have had it now, but that's okay. I'm wrapping this up. And so his last known text to Suzanne was sent on May 11th, 2020, in which he offered her well wishes for her cancer treatment. That message went unanswered, so Libler could not get a hold of her. He wished her a happy Mother's Day. She didn't reply. She was gone. And now we're left with what happens next. And, Suzanne, she had survived 2 battles with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And, this was like decades apart. And so it's like she was already going through too much. She didn't deserve all this. And now we find that, so it's like, what's going to happen now? What is going to happen? Will he be charged with her murder? But the bottom line is she's been found. That's a blessing. Now we can work on getting her the proper things that should have been done for her and her family, because this girl should still be here today. Without a doubt, she should still be here today. And, when you stop and you think, it's like, where could she have gone? Well, my friends, she should have not gone anywhere. It was Mother's Day. They were trying to get a hold of her. And at the end of the day, this is literally should not be happening, right? And we would just want to know, when is someone going to be arrested? When is someone going to be arrested? Now, Barry, he was insistent that, to his wife that he had never cheated on her. Even writing in one text, I promise you, you are wrong about all the crazy thoughts about me. Why would I want another? Only a fool would stray away from an angel like you. So maybe he wanted to keep the marriage together. She didn't want to. We don't know. But I'm a firm believer that the person they arrest for this is going to be the right person. I do believe that. And Janet, didn't he try to vote? Yes, he did, which I thought made him look bad as well. That is so right. So I think that when you stop and think about it, none of us are perfect, right? None of us are perfect. But we should never stoop to this level. We should never stoop to the point where we take someone else's life. And my friends, that's why I do this. Because at the end of the day, Suzanne Morphew, her life was taken way too early, way too young. Who's going to be a voice for her? She deserves a voice. You cannot just take someone off this world and believe and expect them to just be forgotten. You just can't. I do not believe that. And I feel like using these platforms, these ways, we have to keep their name alive. Because they deserve to be here a lot longer, and they shouldn't just disappear. They shouldn't just vanish. And they should not just be forgotten. Suzanne Morphew was not forgotten. We have been holding on to this story for 3 years. I have been tweeting about this story as much as I can. To the point where she deserves a voice. My friends, if that is the type of stuff you like to follow, please hit that subscribe button. That way, whenever I do go live or upload content, you get notified, because again, it's about the victims taken away from this world way too soon. My other hope is to keep you aware of what could go wrong in this crazy world we live in. Because truth is, no matter how prepared, something bad can still happen to us. But the more alert, the more careful, hopefully the less likely something bad will happen to us. So we have to look over our shoulders. Unfortunately, we have to be alert, and we have to know that at any point, that person that you see next to you, you never know. Be careful, be alert, be aware, but enjoy life to the best you can, because we only live it once. And Suzanne was taken from this world way too soon. Justice for Suzanne Morphew. Rest in peace, Suzanne. Until next time, my friends, be careful, be aware, be alert. Peace.